Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on May 22nd, 2021 at approximately 7:41 a.m. PST. Well, as you can see, I'm not wearing the headset again today, and the reason for that is because this is the third headset I bought that, frankly, for me has not worked. Okay, it collapses at some point, and I cannot get it to work. This morning, when I tried testing it before I got started, it was down to one ear set. Now, for me, this is just plain normal, so looks like I'm going to have to do it this way, whether I like to or not. Hopefully, I'll figure something out in time, but so be it. Anyway, everybody has their hiccups. In my case, it happens to be technology. So we start with the basics. Okay, and understand that in order to get things to work in this world, we cannot afford to have it go back to the way it was. Okay, and I keep seeing posts about, about this being the end times, about the world being completely different, and people wanting it to go back to the way it was. Well, in all fairness, we can't really afford for it to go back to the way it was. The amount of abuse, greed, debauchery that was going on, I haven't personally seen the like since Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, so it's time we start realizing that everybody on this planet is exactly the same. Okay, and what I mean by that is regardless of how you got to where you are right now, where you're standing in life right this moment, this is where you start to straighten things out. If you're not content with something, it's time to start altering it. For me, it's this headset. If I ever get it working, I may put it to use. But the reality is, I've tried, this is the third headset that I've had that has buckled on me. Okay, now, can I explain it? Certainly. It's called biomagnetics. Do you desire a more in-depth explanation? I can give that as well, but it goes into dealing with the subquantum physics side of things. And rest assured, the biggest problem there is I'm not actually trained in any of it. Okay. But it is time that we take a look at things and really decide on what is going to matter from us. What's going to matter to you. Are you happy with the way your life is right now? Now, to be clear, there is only one person on the planet that can be successful for you, that can actually change the way your life is working. Not the way that things happen around it, but the way that you handle it. Okay. Now, at the beginning of this year, the estate from my own mother's passing cleared, and in the last 5 months, I have done a lot of good with it. I've buried a lot of it, but the reality is I've got some bad habits that I now know I have to break. Because May was the first month that I wasn't paying off back debts and what have you. And yes, I went through a real bad period. I suspect, and I'm going to be working the numbers out today, I'm pretty certain that I wiped out about 10% of it and just essentially burnt it. Which, okay, as long as I stop doing it, that's not a problem. Okay, I was smart because of the estate that came in. I managed to put away about 65% of it. I buried in long-term investment to take care of myself and my family as I get older. Okay, but now's the time to get down to the basics. Time to get down to doing things the right way and making everything move forward. Now, part of the reason I'm putting this out there is for my benefit. Frankly, I find telling myself things over and over again does have a tendency of eventually sinking in. And you may find the same thing. This is why I tell you that if you put a list together of the things that you're aiming at doing for the day, now, I don't expect you to read that, obviously, because I'm not holding it close enough or at the right angle. But, as I've mentioned before, 4 words to put on your fridge right now, and it would be advisable to put them somewhere where you can see them. See, where I am, I can turn and look at it right there. There's a little wood sign you can see, just the edge of it, that says it. The other part of that word, of that sign, says, I am worth it. those 4 words are the most powerful words that I've come across where it comes to self-esteem, self-motivation, self-direction. Okay, they are the 4 most powerful the 4 most powerful combined words that I've come across this lifetime. Okay, to help get things straight. And rest assured, though I'm not perfect by any functional stretch, I mean, let's face it, I've mentioned it before, been bankrupt twice. Okay, obviously I developed some really stupid habits. Okay, yes, I got to enjoy myself, and the last couple of months has been great. But now it's time to wake up. That neat little dream has got to go away. And we've got to get down to reality. So, some of the things that I've got a list of things I've got to deal with here. But the big thing is this. If we take a look at the way the world is, you look outside, it's pretty overwhelming the amount of messes that are out there. Especially when you think that across on the internet, in Facebook, in a lot of the different chat rooms and what have you, you'll find people talking about how bad things are and how much they've lost, how much they struggle. Okay, all of these things are very real. They do happen. The politicians are out there going, we've got to up taxes, we've got to rein this in, we've got to improve our military base. Well, the reality of military is this. And don't get me wrong, I am absolutely behind. I'm very supportive of the people that elect to join the military. I question some of the motivation and some of the directions that the various militaries go in. But that's for me. Okay, and I'm not going into debating military politics or politics for any matter. I will tell you that whether you follow them or not doesn't matter. It's kind of like whether you believe in gravity. It really does matter. It's going to affect you. But we have to have politicians. We have to have religious and spiritual guides. We have to have educators. Okay, which, by the way, comes under the same category of spiritual guides. Because if you talk to any teacher at all, really, they have to deal with all of those aspects in the classroom or on the school ground or on the campus. Take your pick. There's a lot of different words for it. Same as your spiritual leaders, whether they're out and about individual, as I am, or if they have and yes, I've got a small following. You may be one of these people that has a phenomenal following. Okay. But spiritual leaders across the board have the same problem. They are still dealing with masses of people, and there have to be guidelines. Now, I'd love it for people to start looking at the massive guidelines as an issue of getting along instead of fear, this, that, and the other thing. It is absolutely appalling to me how people can stand there and go, this world, I believe in a world full of love, but I will fear the guy that's supposed to be putting it in place, that's supposed to have created it. God created everything out of love, and yet we're supposed to fear him. I don't understand. It's kind of like you're supposed to respect your mother and father, which I do agree with, and I had a lot of respect for mine. I did not always agree with them. Okay, but the reality of it is I never feared them. And if you fear somebody, you're not actually following their will because you desire to. You're following it because you're afraid not to. Okay. Now, if you're following somebody that's telling you fear whatever, or you're following somebody that is saying, give me all of your material belongings because material belongings and money is the root of all evil and all this, that's a cute thought. And rest assured, I have yet to turn money down from somebody. Okay, but I will tell you, money is not the root of all evil. Money does not make people bad. Okay, money does not lead people down the wrong road. Money is nothing but another barter system. And I don't know about you, but for me personally, it's a lot easier to move a $10 bill than it is to move a cow. It's also a lot easier to care for it. Because let's face it, you take a $10 bill, you stick it in your wallet, and assuming you don't pull it out and nobody else does, it stays there. Number one, let's see you get the cow in the wallet to start with. So, we have to understand the root of evil is that evil and love are two sides of the same coin. You have to have both in a world in order to be able to choose either. Now, it would be advisable, quite frankly, in my opinion, to choose love. And what I mean by that is start looking at the people next to you as simply other people. They're just not you. Okay. They may be a different color, they may have a different political alignment, they may have a different orientation, they may have a different pocketbook. It requires all of these things to have a balance. If you think about it, if everybody were rich, nobody would be rich. If everybody was poor, nobody would be poor. Okay, and the reason I say that is because if everybody is the same, there is no rich, there is no poor, there is no, if everybody was absolutely physically blind, then nobody would be classified as blind. They simply wouldn't be able to see. Okay, but I will tell you this. Most of the blind people I've spoken to personally see so much more with their other senses than people that have vision ever see. Okay. Now, that's not entirely true. Some people have vision and see a staggering amount. But what we've got to get to is this idea that if you take your little pocket of the world, your home, and you eliminate the things in it that you are personally not content with, and you start getting them out of the way, what you'll find is first and foremost, the energy in your house will run more smoothly, you'll be more relaxed, you'll sleep better, you'll feel better, your health will climb, and when you do leave the house, you will find that you get along better with people outside, and this has the effect, if you're in a good mood, and just talk to any waitress, any cashier, any bank teller. If they get one customer in the day that is really a joy to deal with, is really polite, is really pleasant, it can take a miserable day for them and turn it around and go, I've got something positive to enjoy. If you're in that field, I know you know what I mean. Okay. But what happens is, you go out, you deal with other people, you treat them better, they have a better day. When they get home, they do exactly the same thing. They treat the people at home better. Net result, you don't have these people going, I love you to their other half and then beat the living stuffing out of them. And then turn around and go, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. It was your fault I did it in the first place. Well, let's be real. The only person that can do anything for you is you. If you have a temper problem, do something about it. Find someone that you can talk to find different ways of dealing with it. Okay, if you have a drinking problem, quit blaming people and telling other people, telling anybody it's their fault. Because the reality is, unless somebody is physically holding you down and pouring alcohol into your throat, they're not forcing you to drink. They are undoubtedly causing stress that you don't know how to cope with, and therefore you're turning around and drinking. Under the misguided idea that it will help you cope. The reality behind alcohol, aside from making your speech slurred, okay, aside from scrambling that, what it ends up doing is it knocks out your trained and learned inhibitors. In other words, it knocks out your ability to cope. Now, this is a little counterproductive if you're having trouble coping in the first place. Okay, now, some people out there have a real unfortunate habit of hurting themselves because they don't know how to, they feel like their whole life is out of control. And hurting themselves is the only way they can get some semblance of, some sense of control in their own life. Okay, well, because of that, what happens is they turn around and hurt themselves. And, most of the time when I talk to somebody that does that, what I find is they do it because they don't want to hurt anybody else. What they don't realize, and this is why they know it's wrong, this is why they cover it. Okay, but what they don't realize is that the people around them can still feel it. Even if the people don't realize that they're able to feel it, it will affect them. And rest assured, yes, there are people out there that take it a little far and end up committing suicide. Okay, which will take away their pain temporarily, but rest assured, from coming from someone that remembers their past lives, I can tell you that ain't the way it works. Because, yeah, and the way I found that out was because I remember past lives. I had a major loss 2 lifetimes ago. Okay, I lost someone very dear to me, and when I died, I was mad when I came back into this world, and my next lifetime I spent absolutely, hurting everybody I came across. Okay, until I ended up at the end of my life getting introduced to something else. Net result, this lifetime, I happen to be essentially a pacifist. I've got a temper problem vocally, but fortunately, physically, not so much. Okay, but I do know that I don't like the outcome of the physical side, which is one of the things that got my attention with war. When people talk about war being good, war is not good for economy, it's not good for security, and it has never in history brought peace. It has brought quiet, but it does not bring peace. And to the religious leaders and the spiritual leaders out there, time to get it straight. If God created everything, or whatever you call it, it doesn't matter what the higher entity is that you're worshiping. If they created everything, then they also created all of the different religions out there. Okay, which means they're all worshiping the same person or the same entity. Okay, so any way you look at it, this idea of getting into a conflict because of a difference in religious belief it goes completely against your belief in your spiritual guide. Because if they created everything, if they are based in love, if they don't make mistakes, then and if you don't desire to deny God or deny him by any name, if you're going, I'm done, to deny a part of him is to deny God, and I don't want to deny God, then you've got to take a look at that and go, okay, the rest of the religions, yes, they word things differently, but so do the people that speak a different language. Okay, but the purpose of it is still the same thing. People are still talking about, peace. And like Robin Williams, rest his soul, great comedian from decades back, in my opinion, when he was still alive, he made a brilliant comment. Okay, at least I heard it through him. And that was, there are thousands of plans for peace and absolutely no action. Okay, well, I've had lots of plans for straightening my life out, and I haven't put things into solid action properly, to which point things are not quite as well as I'd like them to be right now. And I'm laying odds that they're not as good for you as you'd like them to be. So it's time to look in the mirror and go, okay, what am I not doing that I could be doing better to make my life a little bit more effective? Okay. So, I mean, this thing I was shaking here, right, I picked it up. It's paint to do exactly, that was noisy. It's paint to do exactly what I was talking about the last 2 days, which is why it is on my list. Okay, it is on my list beside me here to get it done. So I won't be completing it today, I'm certain of that, because if you take a look at this particular figure, right, there's a lot of little detail. Now, I don't know, you can see some detail on it, not as much as it really is, but there's a lot of different work that has to be done. So, it's going to sit here, and I'm going to do a bunch of it today. Okay, along with other things. That's just one of those little goals. And of course, by showing you and telling you that, One of the things that I find works with me is if I plan things out and I tell you about it, I have a tendency of going about getting it organized and making it happen. Got a list there that I'm looking at, and I really shouldn't be because it's not telling me a whole lot. But take things one step at a time. Put 3 things on your list, okay, that you're not content with. Okay, whatever they are, it doesn't matter. I knew I forgot something, and I'm about to have a problem anyway. So, I'm going to put this on pause, so I'm going to go grab my coffee, and I will be right back. Okay, now I'm back. Not very long, in all fairness, but long enough for me to get my coffee. See what I mean by change is not painful? I put that on pause for half a second. Well, anyway, it didn't cause you any problem, but I went and got my coffee. Didn't hurt you, but it was a change. Didn't hurt me either, in all fairness. Although there's all sorts of scenarios I could lay out that could hurt. But in any event, you're the only one that can do anything to change your life. If you're not content with it, or for that matter, let's say you're content with something and everybody around you is telling you there's a problem with it. I'm not saying there necessarily is. I heard it put one day, and it can be taken to extremes, so I caution you not to do that. But when your heart tells you something is right, the way it was put, and I don't buy into this 100%, believe me on this one, but when your heart tells you something is right, even if the whole world is standing up and telling you you're wrong, okay, it's imperative you really take a look at what they're telling you. Absolutely take a look at what they're telling you and see if it makes sense. See if you can find a way for what everybody's saying is telling you. See if it makes sense to you. Okay. Now, feelings are a little bit of a problem trying to make sense to, I'll tell you that. Especially if, like me, you happen to be empathic. Now, you may not even know you're empathic, but one of the biggest ways to tell is if you find when you're in a crowd of people and people are behaving in a certain way, you get overwhelmed by what they're feeling. Okay, do you find that if you go into a room after there's been an argument, even if the argument isn't taking place at that point, are you finding that you're feeling really stressed and really down because of something you just can't put a finger on? That's empathy. That's picking up on the energy that's being generated. Okay, in my case, I pick it up directly from the planet at the same time. So we have to look at the way our world is. And you've got to start realizing that the only person that can change things for you is you. You can get all the input from everybody. You can get all the information you want from everybody. You know, doctors will tell you this isn't good for your health. You've got to change it. But unless it adds up here and here, as in if your heart and your mind do not see it the same way, you're going to have complications. Now, I asked my mentor one day years ago, I said, what do you do when your heart and your head are in conflict? In other words, when your heart says, I really want this, and your head goes, not a good idea. Okay. You know, there's a song out, and I forget who sings it, that says, you know, the heart wants what the heart wants. Which is true. But just because you want it doesn't mean it's good for you, and doesn't mean it's a good thing. But the way my mentor put it was, when your heart and your head are in conflict, follow your heart, but use your head to get there. In other words, think it through and make certain you're doing things that work towards what you're aiming for. Okay, for me it's a real simple issue. Okay, for me it's a question of taking a look at things and going, am I happy with the way my world is? Well, the answer for me is no. I looked at my finances yesterday and realized how much I had overspent, how randomly I was spending money. Yes, I've tracked it to the penny, which is better than I've done in the past. Unfortunately, I didn't change what I was doing, and that is the problem. You can have everything calculated. If you don't alter your behavior, you're not going to alter your world. Okay, and it's as I've told many young people, swearing has, to the best of my knowledge, it has not given anybody a promotion, although there is a restaurant in the States somewhere that I heard tale of. I don't know what the name is or where it is for that matter, but it was an interesting concept. And they bill themselves as the rudest restaurant in the city, in the country. Okay. And really, your waiter or your waitress apparently comes up to you and they are paid to be rude to you. Why you would go to a restaurant that people are paid to be rude to you, I don't know. I won't go to a restaurant where they force a tip, right? Because in my eyes, whoever is running the restaurant, number one, should pay their staff properly to start with. Tips should be a benefit that the customer chooses to give the waitress for proper service. Now, I understand the idea when you take a restaurant and you go, okay, the cooks and the dishwasher get a percentage of the waitress's tip. And the reason I don't see a problem there is because if the cook doesn't make good food, the waitress has to do extra work to try and make it a real enjoyable meal for an enjoyable visit, in the hopes that the customer will come back. If the waitress messes up, if the cook is really good, that will balance out the service. And hopefully the customer will come back. I will tell you this though, if the dishwasher, often considered the lowest of the low, does their job wrong and doesn't get the dishes clean, doesn't get them clean in the right order, as in the pots and pans so the cooks can do their job, then frankly there is nobody that can correct that. Okay, that's going to either get the dishwasher fired or it's going to get the restaurant closed, one of the two. In any event, take a look at what you're doing. Are you happy with the way you're treating people? Are you happy with the way you're being treated? And, don't take my word for it. Do your own research, if you will. But the two are connected. How you treat other people has a direct impact on how they treat you. Okay. Now, I've never taken psychology. As a matter of fact, I was forbidden to. And that's a story unto itself. But talk to anybody studying psychology. Well, gravity works. Talk to anybody studying psychology or psychiatry, and they'll tell you the same thing. That how you treat other people will have a direct bearing on how other people treat you. Now, with this in mind, hopefully we get a thumbs up on the video. Give us subscribe to the channel so you can see the rest of the information coming out. And from here on out, I'm going to do what I can to, I don't know about liven things up. I'm pretty boring, really. But I'm going to do my best to get, just about sort of, I'm going to do my best to get a little bit more organized. No, a lot more organized. But until then, remember, if you look at the bottom of the video, you'll see a list of ways of contacting me if you have questions, whether it's social, academic, or to deal with, with UFOs, alien technology. Absolutely drop me a line below. I will do my best to respond and get back, or I'll put a video together. I've got a number of them. I've actually got to put a list of ones I've got to get done so that I can start getting them out. But until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.